Dear learners, we warmly welcome you to this course on health economics, which is offered at Semester 2, Level 4 of the BA degree in Social Sciences program. This is a 3-credit course which is also supported by interactive multimedia sessions. This is the pre-course session that we have designed for this particular course, and it is also followed by a number of video discussions in the future. In this session, we are going to cover certain key principles that we have studied in the subject of economics, and subsequently we will be applying them in the context of the subject of health economics. As we are aware, health economics is a vast subject. But in this particular course, we are going to focus on the main elements that you need to know as a student of economics in the sphere of the health sector. My name is Dulani Lienahetti, and I'm attached to the Department of Social Studies as a lecturer in economics. Joining me today with this discussion are two of my senior colleagues in the department, Mr. LDI Wijetunga and Dr. Shanta Abesinghe. Welcome to both of you. As I mentioned earlier, the purpose of this session is to refresh our minds on certain fundamentals that we are learning in the subject of economics. So in this context, the pre-course session is dealing with 3 main areas. Firstly, it is going to talk about fundamentals of economics. Next, opportunity cost and its application. Finally, or thirdly, we are going to talk about market, which includes demand and supply. In order to study these main areas, we are covering certain key concepts. Firstly, it's needs and wants. We are talking about needs and wants. And next, we are going to talk about scarcity. Thirdly, it is economic choices and opportunity cost. Then the 3 basic questions that have been asked in economics. And finally, we are going to talk about the main economic systems that we are studying. Remember that all of these principles have to be studied in the context of health economics, which we are going to do through the following sessions. Now I would like to turn to Mr. Wijetunga in order to continue with our discussion today. I would like to first talk about the key concept of needs and wants. What is meant by needs and wants, Mr. Wijetunga?
Thank you, Dulani. In economics, to understanding needs and wants are extremely important because generally need is a basic requirement for survival, which include food, clothing and shelter. But when it comes to the wants, wants are unlimited. For example, the range of food, you might ask, say, sandwiches, different type of rice, likewise. So, want is much broader than represented by the term need. So, that is the difference between wants and needs. Now, Dulani, this needs and wants understand, most of the students get confused the difference between these two. The major difference, needs is a basic need, wants are unlimited, beyond needs. Now, if you look at our first concept, which is scarcity. Now, scarcity is an economic condition where there are not enough resources on their planet for people to get everything they want. Now, in other words, in economics, we look at 2 concepts. One is unlimited wants, other one is limited resources. Now, I define what do you mean by unlimited wants. In other words, wants are unlimited, but resources to produce goods and services to satisfy those wants are limited. Let me talk about more about limited resources. What do you mean by limited resources? It could be land, labor, capital. So those are limited. In other words, the wants are unlimited. When you are going to satisfy our wants, we definitely meet limited resources. Now, if you look at this diagram shows that combination. That is, in one extreme, we have unlimited wants. In other extreme, we have limited resources. In other words, we can define economic is a scarcity which based on two concepts. That is, unlimited wants and limited resources. In other words, the root of any economic study is the issue of scarcity. So generally, most economists define economics is about people and how they choose to use limited resources in an effort to satisfy unlimited wants.
Actually, Mr. Wijayatunga, from this discussion, what I understood was that almost on a daily basis, we are grappled up with this issue of needs and wants. We want to satisfy many needs in our life. So I feel that it is a very critical aspect when we study about the broader subject of health economics as well. So I would like to get some viewpoints from Dr. Shanta. How do we understand the subject of health economics in the context of these concepts that we are learning?
Actually, Dulani, now health economics is the application of economic theory, models, and empirical techniques to the analysis of decision making by individuals, healthcare providers, and governments with respect to health and healthcare.
So how do we, can we apply these concepts of needs and wants into the health sector as well?
Well, now when we make decisions, because of limited resources and unlimited wants, we have to make a choice. Therefore, whether it is health sector or agriculture sector or environmental sector, we have to make certain choices.
Yes, so now I think we got a very good understanding of the first key concept that we mentioned in our session, which is on needs and wants. Secondly, there is another interesting factor, which is choices. How do we get into this area of choices, Mr. Wijayatunga?
Well, this is our second concept, choices. Now we are talking about wants and resources, where we understood wants are greater than resources. Now, in other words, scarcity is a condition when our wants are greater than our limited resources. As a result, we are forced to make our choices. You can't escape that one. Now, in other words, in economics, because we can't have everything we want, we must make choices. That is the core in economics. If you look at this diagram, we started with unlimited wants and limited resources, which is based on the scarcity. Since we have scarcity, everybody who want to take any decision, they are compelled to choice. Now, in other words, wherever scarcity exists, choice is inevitable. In other words, once you decide your choices, our third round is Dulani, opportunity cost.
Yes, Mr. Wijayatunga. Now I think we got a very good opportunity to recollect what we were learning so far. And as far as I understand, needs and wants, choices, the limitedness of resources, all these are the core of the subject of economics, which we cannot forget at any moment, whether we are studying about health, education, etc. But moving to Dr. Shant, I mean, is there a way that we could see these aspects in respect of the health sector as well, because I think even in the health sector, people are obsessed with needs and wants and how to make informed decisions about certain health sector programs or whatever facilities that they are getting through the health sector in the country. Can we have some examples in order to broaden our thinking?
Yes, Dulani. Now, when we allocate limited resources, whether we want to screening the patients or we want to make some awareness programs, so we have to select, we have to make a decision. So always we are struggling with certain options. Now, for example, there are a lot of non-communicable diseases. Now, there are two options. One is either you can prevent or you can treat. So now we have to make a decision how we are going to allocate resources, whether in line with prevention method or addressing patients' issues.
Yes, I think those are the two elements that are being considered in the health sector, whether to adopt curative measures or to adopt preventive measures in seeking healthcare facilities in any country, not only Sri Lanka. So I think we managed to, the health sector in Sri Lanka is trying to handle both these elements in satisfying the health needs of the population in the country. So as Mr. Wijayatunga started to discuss about the third concept that we are going to discuss today on opportunity cost, how can someone understand opportunity cost?
Well, generally in the textbook, Dulani, we define opportunity cost that the thing we give up is called the opportunity cost of our choice. Now, for example, I am sitting here and my colleagues are sitting here, make a presentation and talk and discuss about what is economics. What is the opportunity cost of sitting here? Opportunity cost of sitting here, I may have forgone my other work. If I am at the office, I may read in the book, or if you are at the office, say home, if I may be reading or maybe sleeping or something. Those are my opportunity cost. So in the next session, Dulani will talk more on opportunity cost. But here, keep in mind, opportunity cost is nothing but what is foregone. That is about the opportunity cost. Now, if you look at this diagram, again, we can summarize properly. We start with unlimited wants and limited resources. Therefore, we meet scarcity, which is inevitable. Then we are compelled to choose when we have a different type of wants because limited wants. That's why we meet opportunity cost. Now, Dulani, our third concept is a basic economic problem. But before we talk about the basic economic problem, I would prefer Dr. Santa might talk about this opportunity cost and so forth.
Yes, Mr. Wijayatunga. Now, in country like us, we can see Sri Lankan government has introduced free healthcare. Now, one can think that free healthcare or even free education is free. What does it mean by free? Actually, in economics, there is a term called there is no free lunch. That means somebody should pay the cost or somebody should bear the cost. So it is very clear the basic principles of economics is actually the opportunity cost is inevitable in any production, services, consumption, investment, all these sectors, you can see opportunity cost. So now we are going to discuss in detail our lessons, how the medical care professionals or governments, non-government, when they are going to make decisions, how they address or how they look at the principle of opportunity cost.
Right. So these issues are affecting most of the areas that we are talking about. Not only health sector, I feel maybe education and certain other facilities that are provided in an economic setup are affected by these core concepts that we studied earlier. So we have to understand about the problems that economies are trying to solve. Remember earlier we talked about scarcity, limitedness of resources, and the choices that people have to make, be it producers or consumers, which puts us into the final basket of the basic problems that any economy has to solve. What is this basic problem, Mr. Vijayathope?
Yes, Dulani. We stop this diagram. In this diagram, as you mentioned, as Dr. Santa mentioned, opportunity cost is an inevitable one. But every society, since we face opportunity cost, every society faces a very fundamental basic economic problem, whether you are in UK, whether in the US or Soviet Union, India or Sri Lanka or Africa, wherever you are in a society, this basic problem is fundamental in economics. So basic economic problem we define arises because resources are limited, but human wants are unlimited. So same thing come again and again in economics, this definition. So all economics, all the world face set of basic economic problems and continue to try to solve this problem. Of these, three questions are very, very important. What are these three questions? Look at this diagram. What to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. So in other words, this basic question that every economy must find answer, what to produce. What do you mean by what to produce? That means type of goods and services. Say producer must decide what type of goods should be produced and amount of commodities to be produced. That is called what to produce. The second question is how to produce. That suppose if you are a producer, this fundamental second question, how to produce, is very, very important. This problem of selecting techniques of production choice, whether I can use, say, machineries or man-made machineries, whatever. You have to decide how to produce is very important. Third question in our economics is for whom to produce. That means problem of distribution of income. That means the producer generally look at the market and see who are in the market and then convert their market need into the production. That means for whom to produce, because generally producer look at the profit and then produce what is relevant to the profit. That is the third question with regard to the basic economic problem. In other words, in summary form, we have what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. These are basic fundamental economic problem faced each and every country in the world.
Yes, I feel it's no simple task for any economy to find good solutions for these problems that we discuss, because it is quite a challenge. You have to formulate policies and strategies accordingly. Getting back into these three basic problems that economies are trying to solve, Dr. Shanta, how does the health sector face this issue of solving the three main problems? I think we can encounter them in the health sector also.
Actually, Dulani, now when we say what to produce, now especially Sri Lanka, now we have Ayurvedic medicine as well as Western medicine. So now there is a selection whether we should encourage Western medicine or Ayurvedic medicine. Now there is a basic economic problem. Similarly, doctors, whether we need to produce more doctors or more nurses. or whether we want to establish more clinics or more mega scale hospitals. Now these are actually basic questions which are related with what to produce. Similarly, how to produce, whether capital intensive or labor intensive. Country like India, China, they got lot of manpower. So they can concern about something labor intensive, whereas some other countries, they can think about capital intensive. So that is dealing with how to produce, considering your resource environment. Similarly, for whom to produce. Now, with reference to medical care, whether for poverty-stricken group or whether for some rich groups, which social strata we are concerning. So those are actually empirical matters, factors we have to study, for whom we have actually now catered, for whom we have allocated more resources. Now these are actually very basic questions one should decide.
Yes, so in finding solutions to these main problems, economies adopt their own way to address these issues. So that moves us into the broad area of economic systems. So Mr. Wijayatunga, what are the main economic systems that we can study?
Well, Dulani, before we discuss the different economic systems, it's better to define what is meant by economic system. Economic system is the way in which the society uses its scarce resources to satisfy its people unlimited wants. Now, with this definition, we can look at how India operates in their economy, how US operate in their US economy, how UK, Soviet Union, or Sri Lanka. Different economic systems they are operating in order to address this basic problem, that is scarcity. Now, for example, in its economic system determine, as Dr. Santa mentioned, what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Different countries have a different approaches. What does that mean, different approaches? Some countries use a market economy. For example, US, UK, or European countries use a market economy in order to address this fundamental question, that is scarcity, that is limited resources, unlimited wants. So they look at market point of view, that is a price mechanism. They decide what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, all this based on price. But there's another approach called central plan economy. Say, for example, former Soviet Union used basically central plan. They have a central plan committee. They decide what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. That is a difference between market. In a market, market decide price, but central economy, there's a central plan economy or committee. In addition to that, most of the society use the mixed economy. Mixed economy is nothing but combination of both market economy and central plan economy. Central plan economy means government intervention. Now look at Sri Lanka or India. They have both approaches in order to address this fundamental problem with regard to scarcity. Now if you look at this beautiful diagram, Dulani, we can summarize entire area with regard to the economics. We in our early discussion, we start with the scarcity and choices, opportunity cost, and these three basic problem, economic system, under which we are talking about the three systems with regard to the addressing the scarcity.
Therefore, in this discussion, we managed to cover the very first pre-course session that we plan to do today, which is on fundamentals of economics. So in that we discussed about many of the key concepts that we are learning in the subject of economics, which is also useful to studying the area of health economics. So in a practical sense, we are able to understand how the sphere of health economics is addressing these fundamentals that we are learning in the broader subject of economics. So I'm thankful to Mr. Wijayatunga and to Dr. Shanta for spending their valuable time providing immense inputs to enhance our discussion and to impart some basic knowledge to our learners. So in our next session, we will be moving into the second title of our pre-course session, which is on opportunity cost and its practical application.